Legal tender is a form of money that courts of law are required to recognize as satisfactory payment in court for any monetary debt. Each jurisdiction determines what is legal tender, but essentially it is anything which, when offered, tendered, in payment of a debt, extinguishes the debt. There is no obligation on the creditor to accept the tendered payment, but the act of tendering the payment in legal tender discharges the debt. It is generally only mandatory to recognize the payment of legal tender in the discharge of a monetary debt from a debtor to a creditor. Sellers offering to enter into contractual relationship, such as a contract for the sale of goods, do not need to accept legal tender and may instead contractually require payment using electronic methods, foreign currencies, or any other legally recognized object of value. Coins and banknotes are usually defined as legal tender in many countries, but personal checks, credit cards, and similar non-cash methods of payment are usually not. Some jurisdictions may include a specific foreign currency as legal tender, at times as its exclusive legal tender or concurrently with its domestic currency. Legal tender is anything that's recognized by law as a means to settle a public or private debt or meet a financial obligation. This includes tax payments, contracts, and legal fines or damages. The national currency is legal tender in virtually every country. A creditor is legally obligated to accept legal tender toward repayment of a debt. Legal tender is the money or money equivalent that a country or political jurisdiction legally recognizes for all financial exchanges. It's the national currency in virtually every country. Legal tender laws effectively prevent the use of anything else as money in an economy. Legal tender makes monetary policy and currency manipulation possible. The term legal tender is from Middle French tendre, verb form, meaning to offer. The Latin root is tendere, to stretch out, and the sense of tender as an offer is related to the etymology of the English word extend, to hold outward. Withdrawal and replacement. Demonetization is the act of stripping a currency unit of its status as legal tender. It occurs whenever there is a change of national currency, the current form or forms of money is or are pulled from circulation and retired, often to be replaced with new notes or coins. Sometimes, a country completely replaces the old currency with new currency. The opposite of demonetization is remonetization, in which a form of payment is restored as legal tender. Coins and banknotes may cease to be legal tender if new notes of the same currency replace them or if a new currency is introduced replacing the former one. Individual coins or banknotes can be demonetized and cease to be legal tender, for example, the pre-decimal United Kingdom farthing or the Bank of England £1 note, but the Bank of England does redeem all Bank of England banknotes by exchanging them for legal tender currency at its counters in London, or by post, regardless of how old they are. Banknotes issued by retail banks in the UK, Scotland and Northern Ireland, are not legal tender, but one of the criteria for legal protection under the Forgery and Counterfeiting Act is that banknotes must be payable on demand, therefore withdrawn notes remain a liability of the issuing bank without any time limits. In the case of the euro, coins and banknotes of former national currencies were in some cases considered legal tender from January 1, 1999 until various dates in 2002. Most countries continued to exchange pre-euro notes and coins for a period of time, only Ireland continues to do so. Legally, those coins and banknotes were considered non-decimal subdivisions of the euro. When the so-called Swiss dinar ceased to be legal tender in Iraq, it still circulated in the northern Kurdish regions. Despite lacking government backing, it had a stable market value for more than a decade. This is also true of the paper money issued by the Confederate States of America during the American Civil War. The Confederate currency became worthless by its own terms after the war, since it could only be redeemed a stated number of years after a peace treaty was signed between the Confederacy and the United States, which never happened, as the Confederacy was defeated and dissolved. During World War II, the United States printed a series of Hawaii overprint notes as an emergency issue after the attack on Pearl Harbor. The intent of the overprints was to easily distinguish United States dollars captured by the Imperial Japanese Armed Forces in the event of an invasion of Hawaii, which never happened, and render the notes worthless via demonetization. Demonetization is currently prohibited in the United States, and the Coinage Act of 1965 applies to all U.S. coins and currency regardless of age. The closest historical equivalent in the U.S., other than Confederate money, was from 1933 to 1974, when the government banned most private ownership of gold bullion, including gold coins held for non-numismatic purposes. Now, however, even surviving pre-1933 gold coins are legal tender under the 1964 Act. Withdrawal from circulation. Banknotes and coins may be withdrawn from circulation but remain legal tender. United States banknotes issued at any date remain legal tender even after they are withdrawn from circulation. Canadian $1 and $2 bills remain legal tender even if they have been withdrawn and replaced by coins, but Canadian $1,000 bills remain legal tender even if they are removed from circulation as they arrive at a bank. However, Bank of England notes that are withdrawn from circulation generally cease to be legal tender but remain redeemable for current currency at the Bank of England itself or by post. All paper and polymer issues of New Zealand banknotes issued from 1967 onwards, and $1 and $2 notes until 1993, are still legal tender. However, 1 2 and 5 cent coins are no longer used in New Zealand. A cashless society is an economic state whereby financial transactions are not conducted with money in the form of physical banknotes or coins. Cashless societies have existed, based on barter and other methods of exchange. In modern usage, the term usually refers to financial transactions conducted by transfer of digital information, usually an electronic representation of money, between the transacting parties. Commemorative issues. Sometimes currency issues such as commemorative coins or transfer bills may be issued that are not intended for public circulation but are nonetheless legal tender. An example of such currency is Maundy money. Some currency issuers, particularly the Scottish banks, issue special commemorative banknotes which are intended for ordinary circulation, though no Scottish banknotes nor notes from Northern Ireland are legal tender in the United Kingdom. As well, some standard coins are minted on higher quality dies as uncirculated versions of the coin, for collectors to purchase at a premium. These coins are nevertheless legal tender. Some countries issue precious metal coins which have a currency value indicated on them which is far below the value of the metal the coin contains. These coins are known as non-circulating legal tender or NCLT. Euro coins and banknotes became legal tender in most countries of the Eurozone on January 1, 2002. Although one side of the coins is used for different national marks for each country, all coins and all banknotes are legal tender throughout the Eurozone. Although some Eurozone countries do not put 1 cent and 2 cent coins into general circulation, prices in those countries are by general understanding always rounded to whole multiples of 5 cent, 1 cent, and 2 cent coins from other Eurozone countries remain legal tender in those countries. Council Regulation, EC, No. 974/98 limits the number of coins that can be offered for payment to 50. Governments that issue the coins must establish the euro as the only legal tender. Due to variations on the legislative meaning of legal tender in various member states and the ability of contract law to overrule the status of legal tender, it is possible for merchants to choose to refuse to accept euro banknotes and coins within specific countries within the Eurozone. For example, the Netherlands, Italy, Belgium, Finland, and Ireland have de jure or de facto removed the use of 1 cent and 2 cent coins and adopted cash rounding to the nearest multiple of 5 cents. National laws may also impose restrictions as to maximal amounts that can be settled by coins or notes. Kosovo and Montenegro, which are not members of the European Union and the Eurozone and do not have a formal monetary agreement with the EU, unilaterally adopted the euro in 2002 as their de facto domestic currency to ensure monetary stability and to continue to avoid the high/hyperinflation seen in preceding decades. This means that the euro is not a legal tender there. However, it is treated as such by the government and the people. You might have heard someone in a shop say, "But it's legal tender." Most people think this means the shop is obliged to accept the payment form. But that is not the case. A shop owner can choose what to accept. If you want to pay for a pack of chewing gum with a £50 note, it is perfectly legal to turn you down. Likewise, for all other bank notes, it is a matter of discretion. If your nearest corner shop decided to only accept payments in Pokemon cards, they would be within their rights to do so. But they would probably lose customers. Legal tender has a narrow technical meaning that will rarely come up in everyday life. The law ensures that if you offer to fully pay off a debt to someone in a form that is considered legal tender, and there is no contract specifying another form of payment, that person cannot sue you for failing to repay. There are generally two fundamental forms of legal tender. A government can simply ratify market-determined commodity money, such as gold, and agree to accept tax payments and enforce contracts denominated in that commodity, or it can declare an adulterated commodity or valueless token to be legal tender that then takes on the characteristics of a fiat currency. Economic function of legal tender. Legal tender serves several purposes. It's used by market participants to fulfill the functions of money in the economy as a medium of indirect exchange, a unit of account, a store of value, and a standard of deferred payment. Proponents of legal tender laws argue that markets generally fail to produce the optimal type, quality, and quantity of money. They say that legal tender enhances the usefulness of money as a means to reduce transaction costs. Having a legal tender can allow flexibility in money supply, and a single currency can eliminate the transaction costs associated with the use of multiple competing currencies. The imposition of legal tender is one way to achieve a single currency. Legal tender also makes monetary policy possible. It allows the manipulation, debasement, and devaluation of the currency by the issuer to obtain signage. It facilitates the issuance of fiduciary media by the banking system to meet the needs of trade. Gresham's law would make monetary policy, signage, currency manipulation, and fiduciary media issuance much more difficult in the absence of legal tender laws, because good money tends to drive out bad money in this case. Legal tender is the money or money equivalent that a country recognizes within its borders. It's the nation's currency in most cases. Other forms and sources of money aren't recognized and can't be accepted for payment. Thank you for watching this video.